Okay, so here we're looking at turn 4, everyone, and yeah, the battle continues to expand along both flanks and intensify in the center. So, high level, really fast, I've been completely caved in here in the center. As far as my Tigers and my 88s go, Polish 1st Armored Brigade is now hitting it from 3 directions. They've pretty much overrun that hex, and yeah, things are going to get very nasty for me going forward. Over here, I think Piotr's starting to kind of click into how good his tanks are. I mean, I just love Stalin 2s. So Stalin 2s are coming down here, and they're starting to overrun some of my flanking positions here in these extreme western woods. So what I was doing in previous turns was, while my armor was here putting fire down on Studzianki and making sure that these guys didn't counterattack into the flank of my assault into Studzianki, I put mostly Grenadiers, Panzerschrecks, and German Pioneer Infantry here in these woods. And their mission was to slow down any Russian tank counterattack that came around my extreme left wing there. And they did okay. At the end of the day, they're going to have done their job. Spoiler alert. By the time we get to the end of turn 6, these Stalins and KV-1s never do, or I should say KV-85s, never really do develop a major attack here out of the northwest. Because my Grenadiers, kind of did the job. They won a lot of Iron Crosses doing it. I pretty much lost all my infantry out there, but they did do what was required. They held them up for time and kept that extreme left wing at least marginally stable. I went ahead and won the battle down here in the south, and the Soviet survivors are now starting to withdraw out of there to try and maintain some kind of cohesive line down here in the southeast. I've got some flanking units now in the Soviet backfield. Can we take a quick guess where they might be going? Because there's nothing in their way, nothing in their way. Oh my god, they're going to steal an objective hex. To his credit, Piotr did see it, and he now has some rear security units, some T-34s and some T-70s detached from 1st Polish Armored, heading back there to retake it. Some other bad news for me, that's going to further slow down my attack here in the center at Studzianki, is up here from this high ground where he had some units. So he had units there, he still has units there. He's able to see over these trees, because he's on high ground, remember, and spot these German artillery positions. So my 8-centimeter mortars are here, or some of them, I should say, and especially my 10.5 centimeter field howitzers are there. And they've been dropping fire missions into Studzianki, also coordinating with direct fire from my Hummels, and they've really been chipping away at the Guards Rifle Regiment sitting there in Studzianki. But that's not really going to happen anymore, because I've now lost my Vespas, I've lost my 15-centimeter infantry guns, and I've lost my 15-centimeter howitzers. So my artillery is really getting worn down, and that's the only, guys, spoilers, that's the only way to get infantry out of town hexes. You're not going to do it with tanks, you're not going to do it with infantry in anything less than a week. I don't have the artillery to carry that offensive in anymore. So by the end of turn 4, it's clear that I'm not going to take that objective hex up there in Studzianki. Fortunately, this one is still in play, and this one is definitely still in play. This game isn't over yet. So, Piotr, what were you looking at here on turn 4?
Actually, at the end of your turn, when you made this little raid of yours with the units on the right flank, as you have said, and I will be really, I won't be modest over here,
Yep.
because you said something like, oh my god, who has reserves on turn 4?
Right?
Yeah, and I had some reserves on turn 4 somewhere near Basinov, west of Basinov, and I managed to push the forces back to the hex, to the objective hex in Vygoda, just to secure it and ruin your sneaky plan. So that was the first thing I believe I did during that turn. And then
this isn't over yet. We'll come back to this in turn 5 and 6. This isn't over yet, but okay, go ahead.
This isn't over yet, that's true. And then I moved back to the left wing when the Guards Heavy Tanks Brigade mounted its small attack against your infantry, because as you said, these tanks are really powerful, and they are. That's true. Your infantry was being, slowly just killed off from the map, actually.
Yeah, you say small attack. Guards rifle, I'm sorry, a Guards independent heavy tank regiment doesn't do anything small.
It's
just,
small when there are Russians and only 70 tanks.
right? So your average, 8x4 table in a 15mm game is going to look about like that if you actually do the math. So picture an 8x4 table with 30 Soviet tanks on there, all of them JS-1s or JS-2s, and they have overrun and destroyed 1, 2, 3, 4 platoons of German tanks. 4 platoons of German infantry of various types: Pioneers, Panzerschrecks, and Grenadiers. So we're looking at 30 Soviet tanks and 200 German infantry figures on an 8x4 table in woods and on a slope. So yeah, that's a hell of a 15mm table going on there. It looks small here on a Panzer leader table, which it is. Piotr's not wrong about that by any means, but at the same time, that's a huge battle. It's not only because of the numbers of tanks and the scale of the game, but also the type of tanks. I mean, JS-1s and JS-2s are serious badasses when it comes to units. And again, that's just this tiny little corner of the battlefield. And that just extends outward and outward. This is a medium-sized Panzer leader game as far as the size of the map. Number of units, it's kind of a large game. It's not stupid large, but it's pretty big. All right, so yeah, I do have a foothold in the actual town now, but yeah, these guys are forlorn hope, man. They have blown open a door in the enemy castle, so to speak. They have forced the breach. They've rushed through the breach, but like we see in all the old Sharps movies, yeah, I don't like their chances long term going forward, because they're up against 400 Guards rifles, light artillery, heavy mortars, anti-aircraft guns, Su-85s, Polish Su-85 platoons have now moved in here, or I should say Su-85 batteries have now moved in there. They've lost almost all of their artillery support. They've got one battery of Hummels left. My Panthers tried to rush in there and support them, but they got pinned down by fire from 15 T-34Cs, long-range fire from T-34Cs. Yeah, it's not looking so hot here. It's costing him. He's a lot of these smoke columns are destroyed Soviet units that my anti-aircraft is destroying, my Hummel's destroying, my Panzerschrecks are destroying. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. It's a bit of a bloodbath. This little field, this little triangle of death here, leading into the southern part of Studzianki it's a mess. But we'll see how that goes going into turn 5. Okay guys, here we are on turn 5, and it's pretty much just a continuation of what was going on turn 4, or I should say a continuation and expansion of what was going on in turn 4, with a few exceptions. So our battle over here in the extreme west is still going on, but it's now drawing in more German infantry. I'm losing more and more German infantry, but those Soviet tanks are not advancing. So I'm buying time with blood over there. It will actually wind up working out in my favor. I mean, I'll lose a lot more units than he will, but as far as strategic position goes, I actually will be happy with the results out there. What's not so happy is that he's finally started a little bit of an offensive with his Polish armor here across that open field. That between the Soviet gun line here, the Soviet infantry line here, the German tanks here, and the German artillery that was mostly here, nobody wanted to enter this field. to step on this field was just to, make peace with your creator right off the bat.
Yeah, it was a Mexican standoff.
Yeah, but finally Piotr broke the standoff here, and he kind of rushed across. He dropped some smoke screens in front of him, or in front of my units to kind of dampen counterfire, and it worked out pretty well for him. So even though these units are more or less stalled, I mean, they're almost out of the battle by this point. Some of these other units, lighter and faster Soviet armor, and especially lighter and faster Polish armor, has a pretty good chance of just swooping around here. I mean, look at this. Okay, let me take a quick moment here. This unit has a speed of 11. right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With less than half its movement, it can take the objective hex. Now, it has to move in front of all these German units. Not all of them are going to make it. But if he wanted to get bloody, he could have snatched that objective hex right there. I'm going to very quickly reinforce that hex and make sure that it doesn't fall. But this German position, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is a lot less secure than it looks. So yeah, I'm actually really worried about this. At this point of the game, I was actually really worried about that objective hex here. Down here, not so much. I pretty much secured this area, in fact, so much that I've now sent in all kinds of reinforcements. Mark IV platoons, howitzer-armed half-tracks, howitzer-armed armored cars, self-propelled anti-aircraft on the back of half-tracks. It's all rushing up here because I'm trying to reinforce these two guys, and we're going to make a run on Łagoda. Although we were until he sent that renegade reinforced company of Polish T-34s to take this crossroad and cut. So you guys can see what I was doing. I was rushing up this way, and then to switch over to another color, the T-34s came in that way and literally just cut that road. So now these poor guys are cut off. They're not getting home, and they're not going to take Łagoda. They don't have the strength to take Łagoda, and they don't have the route to kind of get back home. So things are not looking so good over here with my little raid. So, what was going on for you, Piotr, here on turn 5?
Oh, the biggest success of this turn was my cut attack of 5 infantry platoons on your trucks in the center.
Oh yes, my poor trucks. They were just cooking goulash and bratwurst, and you blew them up, my empty trucks. That's when I knew this game was lost, when you blew up my empty trucks. Yep.
That's true, because they were in the way.
Yeah.
Actually, but in all seriousness, I was trying to grind your forces that set up this foothold at Studzianki. So my KV-85s were shooting the hell out of this one hex, and I believe I managed to destroy some of your vehicles up there, but your 2 platoons of infantry were just, earning their iron crosses, being disorganized, and, getting back to the fight, being disorganized, getting back to the fight, and this lasted for like 3 turns or something like that. But this actually stalled your advance, and I was slowly, but really slowly, trying to punch in the center. But then you moved back your Panthers, I believe, and set up a defensive position in these concrete buildings over here. So this started to pose a problem, especially that I had no field guns or something like that.
There's a platoon of Panthers hiding in this hex, guys. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, behind the trucks. So yeah, that was quite sneaky, and I was also thinking of trying to get that hex, to steal that hex away from you on the left, the one objective hex that you were talking about earlier.
Okay.
So the right was actually trying to do that, but we shall see how that went. And I was trying to stop you in the east, your infantry that was getting from the south. Okay. And in the north, I decided to load some infantry on the Su-85s and push them to Basinów in order to stop your advance in the north at Wygoda. And that was my plan for turn 5.
Yeah, here are those Su-85s carrying Polish and Soviet infantry that we're going to take a look at in just a second. And yeah, over here we've got those tanks he was mentioning, T-34-85s, bombarding this town hex that I managed to take. So that German wreck counter, those were Jagdpanzer IVs. So T-34-85s, even at this range, again, T-34-85s, the range isn't too bad because they've got 85mm guns now. They're not like T-34Cs, but they're still not great because they're still, Russian guns. But even at that range, especially in these numbers, this is 20 tanks. Again, remember, yeah, they put a whooping on those those Jagdpanzer IVs that were sitting there in that town hex. What these guns are terrible at is engaging infantry, because tank guns versus infantry are not the best. Tanks can really only destroy infantry in this game by overrunning them, and you can't overrun a hex if it's got woods in it or buildings. So once infantry can sort of dig in any kind of good terrain, they're really tough to get rid of with just tanks. Unfortunately for me, he also has plenty of artillery support. He's got one battery of 120mm mortars. These things are absurdly awesome. These 120mm mortars were so good, in fact, the Germans, when they went into Russia in 41, didn't have 120mm mortars. They didn't have the 12cm Granatenwerfer yet. But they captured a few of these Russian mortars and they said, hey, this is a really good idea. These 8cm Granatenwerfer 34s we have aren't always doing the job. And that's where the Germans kind of got the idea for 120s. They straight out stole it from the Soviets. He's got two batteries of 82mm mortars, if that case that wasn't enough, on top of, again, damn near 400 or at least 300 guards riflemen in all these buildings. So, wow, yeah, turn 6, this is where everyone kind of got a little desperate, or at least I was starting to get a little desperate. You guys can see the crossfire of just a flurry of gunfire across that open field now, as we're making one last shove to try and draw some sort of an attack into Studzianki. You see some hexes are now empty because more and more Soviet forces are either being killed and he's having to consolidate in that central infantry battle, or those infantrymen are being drawn off to do other things. Given another 3 or 4 turns, and maybe another battalion of German Grenadiers, I might have cracked Studzianki, but I just don't have the time or the forces. Over here in the extreme, on my extreme left, those some of those Stalins are finally starting to make a little bit of a push, overrunning some half tracks and getting to, again, within a hex or two of the objective hex over here. I've had to pull back that renegade force that I thought was going to come around here and steal the Wagoda hex. So the guys that originally made the run are pretty much screwed at this point. Those T-34s have turned north, and they're going to start to destroy them later on. So what I did instead with the forces that I originally intended to use to reinforce those guys is I've turned them west, and I've threatened his mortars. This turned out to be a pretty bad move on my part because I forgot how fast some of his infantry could realign backwards and sort of catch a lot of this German light armor and really tear it up. So I never really did get a good crack on these mortars. It wouldn't have really have changed the end of the game, but it would have felt good to blow up weak Russian mortars, and especially a Russian command post. Killing a Soviet general is not always a bad thing. But yeah, by the end of the game, yeah, this objective hex is still mine. This objective hex is still mine. Conversely, there's just no way in hell I'm ever grabbing this one. This one here, you can see there's a little bit of an infantry battle. Again, I got within 1 hex of it. But, yeah, he's now being cat-attacked by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Something like, 500 Soviet and Polish infantry from 4 directions. So they made it to the objective hex, those Germans, and they died within sight of it. Because there's just no way that they're going to get out of that little cauldron there in those woods.
That's a fun fact about this little battle over here, because I counted and I put exactly 21 points of infantry inside. And that was the defense factor of your infantry. So you have a 1-to-1, on the CRT table.
Right. So what Piotr's talking about is Panzerleader more or less runs on a ratio system. You need to match enemies' defense factors with your attack factors to get a 1-to-1. You need to double it to get a 2-to-1. So he counted up all my defensive factors. That's 8. That's the lower left-hand number. That's an 8 for that rifle platoon, 8 for that rifle platoon, and 5 for that police platoon. So it's a grand total of 21. All right, and yeah, he spent the most of the turn here without even me really realizing it. He didn't ask any questions or let me know. But if you add up all the attack factors, that's the upper left-hand number. For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This guy cannot help because he's pinned down. Plus he's a tank. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You come up with exactly 21. Like exactly 21. And I was like, Piotr, did you just manage a perfect 1-to-1 on your cat attack? And he said, laughed at me, and he said, yes, I did. I said, okay, this is officially your last learning game. Okay, you've now figured out PanzerBlitz. No more softball pitches. From now on, it's on, dude. All right. But yeah, by the end of turn 6, we pretty much, by now we've been, running this game, just the game, for about 6 hours. Again, add to that at least an hour or two of building the game. Of course, we broke this up across 2 sessions. But we pretty much realized how the game was going to shake out as far as objective hexes go, and so we decided to call it. So, did you want to make any last observations, Piotr, or notes on this last turn 6 here?
Well, I'm starting to like the system more and more as we go further, because I believe this is our 4th game of Panzerleader. We did the 1939 September campaign last year.
Yeah, but that almost doesn't count. I mean,
because it was early war.
1939 tanks versus 1944 tanks. I'm sure now you've seen the difference. Like these lines of sight and lines of fire, dude, you don't see anything like this in 1939. Every tank in the game has a range of about 2, or if it's a really good tank, a range of 3. The only exception would be like the howitzer tanks, like the early Mark IVs, but that's just howitzers.
Most of them have I-class weapons, so basically they can, they can see each other and wave to each other, to one another, just to.
Early war machine gun tanks are fun because they have, like Piotr's mentioning, I-class weapons. Basically machine guns. So you have tanks that can attack anything on the battlefield except other tanks. Fast forward to 1944, and the tanks aren't carrying just machine guns anymore. We're talking about 88s, 76s, 85s. Those Stalins carried 122 millimeter main guns. I think that was the D10 cannon. The shell was so big, the Soviet crews had to load them in 2 pieces, which really affected the rate of fire. You had to load the shell and then the propellant. It's almost like a battleship gun. It's absolutely crazy, some of the guns that people were throwing around in late war. In some ways, it makes late war less fun because maneuver is, a thing. You poke your head up out of a hedgerow and you're going to get your head blown off from, half a kilometer away, or more, 2 kilometers away. But because the ranges are so incredible. But at the same time, it's really nice to have those big firepower toys to dig infantry out of town hexes or fortifications or things like that. Firepower is the thing in late war. In early war, it's maneuver, is the general trend.
But I don't know if that's true. That's my wild guess after one game of late war. But I do believe that late war makes you think about smoke. Smoke is your friend.
Oh yeah, because you need something to break up those lines of sight. Because everything just shoots so much further. So I probably said this before, but okay, you've got early war guns that have, X armor, and you have early war armor plating that has like Y defense factor. And what really decides the lethality of a gun or the survivability of a unit is the delta between X and Y. So by the time you get to late war, yeah, all the guns have gotten bigger, but all the armor has gotten thicker as well. So that overall delta between X and Y is a lot more stable than most people think, but what has absolutely changed to a quantum level out of all recognition to 1939 and 1940 is the range. Guns just shoot so much further. They may hit just as hard relative to your armor, which has also improved in the intervening years, but the range has blown the battlefield completely out of recognition. And that's something that's really tough to do on a miniatures table because of the, not everybody can play on a golf course or a tennis court or anything else like that. You need a really big table to give your units enough room to show that kind of the sort of range differentials. But here in a hex encounter game, it's really easy. And that's going to be one thing also, if you're ever playing PanzerBlitz on the Eastern Front specifically, that's what PanzerBlitz is Eastern Front. Panzerleader is Western Front. Is, Soviet guns hit just as hard as German guns. The difference, German guns shoot much further. It's all about the range. And this goes for Team Yankee, Flames of War, Panzerleader, PanzerBlitz. When you're fighting Soviet stuff, try to keep them at a distance. You have to keep them because up close they hit just as hard as you, and because they're Soviet equipped, they probably outnumber you like 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 to 1. So once they get close, it's like zombies. They're just going to eat you alive. The difference is you have to keep them at a distance. Is probably Panzerleader 101 as far as fighting Soviets go.
That's true, and I must say it was a really fun game. We need to do some more Panzerleader in the near future and for the next couple of years.
Yeah, we can do some Panzer Leader. I'll live and die on the Eastern Front for as long as anybody wants the game. The problem with the Eastern Front, though, in all honesty, Eastern Front battles are never small. Smaller games are the stuff you see in the desert, and the stuff that you see obviously on the Western Front. Although by the time you get into Normandy, those battles are really big too. Caen, Saint-Lô, Carentan, Avranches, yeah, those are some big battles. They're not quite as big as like Kursk or anything like that, obviously. But some of those battles get really big too. Desert battles are absurdly small. When you actually look at the size of those forces that were actually out there, until you get to El Alamein. But like Compass, Brevity, Battle Axe, Crusader, those battles really aren't that big.
No, that's true.
So those might be good for more Panzer Leader games. Obviously, you play on a desert board, or we can keep doing Eastern Front. I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but Panzer Leader games, or I should say PanzerBlitz games in the East, are usually going to be kind of big.
That's true. That's true. A lot of forces, a lot of tanks, and when you talk about the Soviet forces, you talk about armies and corps, and when you talk about the Germans, you usually stop at a division level, eventually a corps level.
If you're lucky, you're usually stuck at the Kampfgruppe level, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
that's true.
The overall line sort of flushed or finished out something kind of like this, but yeah, there's a little bit of a salient there. Yeah, so yep, Soviets walked away with a win on the. Or I won't say walked away. The Soviets earned a win on this one, 3-2. I came close to stealing it on at least 2 occasions, but it didn't quite work out for me. I was within the objective hex. I was within 2 more objective hexes by less than a hex, or pretty much by 1 hex between me and the objective hex. But yeah, those were two football fields I just wasn't going to cross to kind of put an exclamation point on there. There's just no way that what was up here was going to have enough firepower or resilience to defeat what was in Pagoda, especially in concrete buildings. Same here and same here. So with the Soviets holding those 3 objective hexes, yeah, I pretty much had to take a 3-2 defeat on this one. So congratulations to Piotr for a well-fought game of PanzerBlitz, and a big one too.
Thank you very much, Jim. It was a pleasure.
All right, guys. So we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. We definitely hope that you enjoyed this little discussion. If anyone wants to try any of these web war games, again, you can always find me on YouTube. We're also have a Sitrep Discord. You guys can reach out to me. On Tabletop, of course, I'm all over the place on Tabletop. It doesn't have to be Eastern Front. It doesn't have to be PanzerBlitz. So they don't always have to be this big as far as the size of the games go. They can be small battles too. We also have Valor and Victory, which is much smaller, sort of a game system. So we have options. But for now, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks one more time, Piotr, for joining us here. And we hope to see everybody very soon. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye.